Howdy, folks. It's your friend Max Mogren reporting live for you here at Wake Up News from beautiful Alpine, Wyoming. It is September 12th, 2017. This is Wake Up Wyoming. Lots of big changes underfoot here. Let's see if we got any viewers. I tried to go live. It didn't work. Give me a viewer. Come on, Facebook. Give me a viewer. We got a viewer. We're live. Thank you so much for tuning in again. This is Wake Up Wyoming. Big show today. The big news at Wake Up News. Huge outpouring of support. Thank you all for your shares, your likes on our 9/11 Truthathon yesterday. Had a lot of people tuned in for that. We are approaching 500,000 likes at the Wake Up News website on the Facebook page. 497,600 likes. We're within 3,000 of hitting our goal of 500,000. So please help us out getting there. You can see I've moved my studio into a secure, undisclosed location, trying to have some fun with it. Other nuts and bolts stuff here at Wake Up News. We're still looking for a graphic designer to help us out with a new logo. We want to get rid of that old kind of all-seeing eye logo. That's not, it's outdated. Zach Kuntz threw that together a long time ago. We're not Illuminati. The purpose of the old logo is to show the news being trapped within the all-seeing eye in the prison, in the FEMA camp, so to speak. So it's time to upgrade the logo, make it a little more optimistic looking. So anybody with graphic design experience, hit us up. Private message, either Wake Up News or me directly, Max Mogren. That's Mogren. And we would love to work with you. Same thing, we're getting the website going. We could really use a web developer. Anybody wants to do some work exchange there, I'm sure we can figure out a way to make a mutually beneficial, symbiotic relationship. So if you got web design experience, you want to help out, hit us up. It's time to collaborate and make this thing really work. Other news, I got a room for rent here in Alpine, Wyoming, and I'm willing to do like a work exchange for somebody that's interested in being kind of an intern or an assistant. There's a lot that goes into posting these videos, researching these news, and I could use some help. So same thing, anybody that's in the Wyoming area or thinking of relocating out here, hit me up. I promise, despite all the pessimism in the world today, despite all the negative news coming out of the lamestream, deadstream media, we try to have some fun with it here at Wake Up Wyoming. So if you're interested, hit me up, Max Mogren. Also, anybody in the Alpine or Jacksonville area, I have more rhubarb growing in my garden than I can possibly eat. So if you want some rhubarb, private message me on that. Big show today. We're looking at the Petro Yuan. We're looking at universal basic income. This is coming out of mainstream outlets like CNBC lately. And we're also looking at Harvey and Irma reconstruction. Another interesting story today coming out of phys.org about shipping pollution intensifying storms. Interesting timing on them releasing that article, openly acknowledging that particulate pollution from ships unintentionally affect the climate. Of course, we also live in the era of weather modification and geoengineering, where wireless electromagnetic energy and intentional aerosol pollution is used to manipulate the weather and climate on a massive scale, which prompts the obvious question, why weren't the storms Harvey and Irma weakened and sent back out to sea? Then we're going to get into the Jackson Hole Daily, looking at the mainstream local rag that services the wealthiest county per capita in North America. But first, headlines here on the phone. Again, we're talking about the Petro Yuan, universal basic income, Harvey and Irma, and all that jazz. Then we'll get to the Jackson Hole Daily, winding up the show today with horoscopes, of course. Links today. I've compiled these from Rice Farmer and Jenna Orkin, two intrepid, incomparable, brilliant researchers who I worked with when I was working with Michael C. Rupert. They both post online at ricefarmer.blogspot.com and at mikerupert.blogspot.com. These two, this man, this woman, are tireless, brilliant researchers. So I get most of my news through their efforts. I want to thank them and let everybody know. Again, on wakeupnews.net, our latest article is all these news links. So if you want more news than you can shake a stick at, go to wakeupnews.net. I got them all listed right there. Real quick on Harvey and Irma, the economic hit could total $200 billion. Of course, that is drastically restructured the debate about the debt ceiling. Obviously, they're going to bump the debt ceiling because they got to pay for these hurricane reconstructions. How convenient. If you didn't see the crazy videos of Irma literally pulling the ocean away from its shores, that's pretty shocking stuff. We got a video that came out today. Desperation mounts in the Caribbean islands. There's nothing left in the BVIs and all the food is gone. Real shocking video there. It's interesting. I can say from direct experience here in Wyoming even that these hurricanes have affected me directly. I had some friends who I was going to store their car for them here on my lot for $50 a month throughout the winter while they went and worked jobs in St. John's, on the island of St. John's. Well, the house that they were going to rent and the restaurant they were going to work at is gone. So there you see, you know, hitting me personally in the pocketbook and affecting these people's lives greatly, even though we're here in Wyoming. Showcases, you know, obviously me losing out on $50 a month in a car storage fee is not a big deal compared to people losing their entire homes. But it's important to note all the ripples and repercussions of events like this taking place. Again, the technology exists to weaken storms and prevent them from causing catastrophic damage. So why don't we go ahead and do that? Probably for the same reasons we keep fighting these silly wars all over the world, blowing people up for power and profit. Half of Florida without power as the state braces for the lengthiest restoration in U.S. history. Florida gun owners encouraged to shoot the storm and fire their guns at Hurricane Irma. Apparently, a lot of people got on board with that, something like 49,000. Stay classy, America. And if you didn't see the interesting news about Tesla in the days leading up to Hurricane Irma hitting Florida, he magically extended the battery life of Tesla's fleeing Irma. Pretty interesting, pretty wild to live in the era when cars can be hacked. And Elon Musk, the folks at Tesla, literally sending out a signal that told the cars to override the battery limits, right? Letting somebody drain the battery almost completely versus how it would cut out of service earlier. So that's pretty interesting. So Irma, Harvey, big deals, preventable, arguably a false flag attack, much like 9/11, perpetuated by the military-industrial complex against the people of the Caribbean and the United States. Of course, Katia hitting Mexico as well. All these hurricanes could be steered using existing technologies, things that were developed decades ago. If you don't believe me, check out Project Cirrus, Project Scud, Project Storm Fury, Operation Popeye, the Department of Homeland Security's HAMP project, Hurricane Modification Project. They had a big meeting about that in Boulder, 2008. It's all out there. Moving along, the headline story today, the petro yuan. Big news coming out the last couple weeks. The Chinese proposing the petro yuan to replace the U.S. dollar, the petrodollar, as the world's reserve currency used to back international oil transactions. Very big deal. And the Chinese have got their ducks in a row a little more than Uncle Sam because they are backing the petro yuan with gold, whereas the U.S. dollar is backed by nothing except for people's confidence in the Federal Reserve System, which is a private, profit-driven banking cartel. So if the U.S. dollar loses its status as the world reserve currency, that's going to really suck for Americans, but it's coming. We don't have much control over it. The U.S. petrodollar breakdown continues. Big moves in gold and silver ahead, according to this headline. The 4-decade-long monopoly of the U.S. petrodollar on the world as the world's reserve currency is coming to an end. Unfortunately, most Americans have no clue that when the dollar loses its reserve currency status, life will get a lot tougher living in the U.S. of A. Let's say Americans will finally receive precious metals religion. The U.S. dollar index fell considerably yesterday and is now down below a key support level. In the early morning trading yesterday, the U.S. dollar index fell to 91.46, down 73 basis points. Another article, how China just reset the global monetary system with gold. In June, China took the first step towards overturning the petrodollar by establishing a direct trade relationship with Russia, allowing for oil purchase to be made strictly in yuan. And just like that, the petro yuan was born. Not long after China's new deal with Russia, Chinese officials began negotiations for a similar agreement with Saudi Arabia, but the discussion didn't flow as smoothly as it did with Russia. Russia welcomed the petro-yuan with open arms, but other big oil exporters haven't been as keen to embrace it. Despite rising concerns around the U.S. dollar stability and viability, the yuan is still too illiquid and unestablished globally in comparison, causing many exporters to shy away from accepting it. But China has an ingenious way to solve this problem, simply by backing the petro-yuan with gold. So that'll be interesting to see. Venezuela's Maduro, we've been waging economic war against Venezuela, currency wars against Venezuela. Well, Maduro, the president of Venezuela, says they will shun the U.S. dollar in favor of the yuan and other currencies. Of course, folks like Saddam Hussein tried to do this. Gaddafi in Libya tried to do this. Folks in Iran trying to do this. So we'll see what happens in Venezuela. I'd love to make a trip down there if you all want to send me. But it's not happening unless we get some funds in the bank account. Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro said on Thursday his cash-strapped country would seek to free itself from the U.S. dollar next week using the weakest of two official foreign exchange regimes and a basket of currencies. Maduro was referring to Venezuela's DICOM official exchange rate, in which the dollar buys 3,345 bolivars, according to the central bank. At the strongest official rate, $1 buys just 10 bolivars, but on the black market, the dollar fetches 20,193 bolivars, a spread versus the official rate that economists say has fostered corruption. $1,000 of local currency bought when Maduro came to power in 2013 would now be worth $1.20. So the folks of Venezuela, despite having some of the largest oil reserves on the planet, have been suffering from hyperinflation. Now they're trying to eliminate the dollar entirely. Should be pretty interesting to see what happens in Venezuela. Just a quick heads up to all of you, I can't see any of your comments today. I don't know why. Facebook likes messing with me. I cannot see a single comment. So please leave your comments there. Right now it's telling me that there are 19 likes and 13 comments, but I can't see any of that. So keep commenting for your own sake, for the sake of other people reading or listening, watching this, and know that I will check out your comments after the video wraps up today. So there's our coverage on the Petro-Yuan. What else do we got? Hurricane Irma might damage the insurance industry. Up to $65 billion of damages is projected, although there are other headlines today saying combined damages from Hurricane Harvey and Irma of $200 billion. To put that into perspective, Hurricane Katrina back in 2005, the most expensive disaster in American history at that point in time, the price tag on that was about $185 billion. Second headline we got today, what are your thoughts on the universal basic income? I would love to see your thoughts, but Facebook's not showing me any comments today. This is a CNBC article from their economics section that came out about a week ago. Giving every adult in the United States a $1,000 cash handout per month would grow the economy by $2.5 trillion by 2025, according to a new study on universal basic income. The report was released in August by the left-leaning Roosevelt Institute. Roosevelt Research Director Marshall Steinbaum, Michaelis Nikephoros, and Bard College's Levy Institute, and Gennaro Zezza at the University of Cassino and Southern Lazio in Italy co-authored the study. The study's main economic forecasts were for three proposals: a full universal basic income in which every American adult gets $1,000 per month, that's $12,000 a year; a partial basic income in which every adult gets $500 a month; and a child allowance in which parents get $250 a month per child. The larger the universal basic income, the greater the benefit to the economy, according to the report. Blah, blah, blah. But then there's some good commentary on that article by Joe Jarvis from the Daily Bell. I'm going to go ahead and read you what Joe Jarvis at the Daily Bell had to say on that. Wow, you're saying that the U.S. government simply creating money out of thin air, we can increase the amount of money in existence. Why didn't we think of this before? Why are we only $20 trillion in debt? Why not go $200 trillion in debt? Why not $900 trillion? Who cares? It just boosts the economy. The super serious, legitimate intellectual study found that the larger the handout, the more the economy grows. Hear that? We can all be millionaires. It's easy street from here on out. We can all quit our jobs at factories, farms, grocery stores, and office buildings. Things will keep being produced, sold, and organized according to the report. What they didn't add in is that in order to finance these handouts without taxation, the U.S. would add $24 trillion of debt. The already insane national debt would more than double in 8 years. And what would a cash influx of that kind cause? Exactly what the study did not take into consideration. Inflation. So there you go, Joe Jarvis chiming in. I'm curious to get your thoughts on universal basic income. We've seen countries like Switzerland have implemented it. Of course, here in the United States, it's important to note that since 2009, the Federal Reserve Bank has already been printing money like it's going out of style. But instead of gifting it to the American people as a universal basic income, they've been distributing it to the government to fund deficit spending and to prop up all the toxic loans from the mortgage-backed securities crisis that helped crash the economy in 2008, 2009, right? So it's interesting to note that if you really did want to boost the U.S. economy and they're already printing up $85 billion a month, what would happen? You know, and that is contributing to inflation. They say the inflation rate's about 2%, but we don't feel that at the grocery store. We don't feel that in our health care costs. We don't feel that at the gas pump. You know, the real inflation rate, the CPI, generally the one they report on doesn't include food prices, doesn't include fuel prices. I don't even think it includes health care costs. And what do we got? They're saying that the Obamacare premiums, the Affordable Care Act premiums are going to go up by, for people on the low level, they're going to go up by 25% this year. They say it's that in Wyoming, the lowest cost plans are going to go up by 48% this year. Okay, so inflation is not running at 2% like the government says it is, and that's partly due to the fact that the U.S. dollar is losing value, in part because of things like the petrodollar system falling apart, but also because they keep printing money. Okay, I would argue that the universal basic income is not going to solve our problems, but it would be a better stopgap solution than giving money to people that already have more money than God, which has been the process since 2009. Moving along. See what we got here. Lots of trouble in Myanmar. People, huge crisis there. Check out this. You know, I don't have time to go through all these links, but if you go to wakeupnews.net and check out the latest Wake Up Wyoming, where this live stream will post after it's live, you know, after I wrap it up, download it, upload it there, you'll be able to see all these links. The link to that is in the description of this video too. What else do we got that's good? Rice Farmer and Jen Orkin, so on their game. They provide so many news stories that it's kind of overwhelming. Another big headline today, shipping pollution intensifies, storms at sea. Okay, this is from phys.org. I'm going to read an excerpt from that article to let you know. It's a study from the Geophysical Union. Thunderstorms directly above two of the world's busiest shipping lanes are significantly more powerful than storms in areas of the ocean where ships don't travel, according to new research. A new study mapping lightning around the globe finds lightning strikes occur nearly twice as often directly above heavily trafficked shipping lanes in the Indian Ocean and the South China Sea than they do in areas of the ocean adjacent to shipping lanes that have similar climates. The difference in lightning activity can't be explained by changes in the weather, according to the study's authors, who conclude that aerosol particles emitted in ship exhausts are changing how storm clouds form over the ocean. The new study is the first to show ship exhaust can alter thunderstorm intensity. Okay, if shipping exhaust, the particles, the aerosol pollution from shipping exhaust can alter thunderstorm intensity, certainly intentional weather modification programs using airplanes and electromagnetic frequencies can definitely do that. And we've seen evidence of that in the skies overhead for 2 decades now. The new study is the first to show ship exhaust can alter thunderstorm intensity. The researchers conclude that particles from ship exhaust make cloud droplets smaller, lifting them higher in the atmosphere. This creates more ice particles and leads to more lightning. The results provide some of the first evidence that humans are changing cloud formation on a nearly continual basis. Okay, I think there are other studies out there, but this is the first mainstream one reported by phys.org. Rather than after a specific incident like a wildfire, according to the authors, cloud formation can affect rainfall patterns and alter climate by changing how much sunlight clouds reflect to space. They don't note there that also clouds can affect heat radiating back out to space. After the sunlight gets down into the lower atmosphere, heats up the water or the land, that infrared that would go back out to space is trapped. The cloud's acting like a big blanket. It's one of the clearest examples of how humans are actually changing the intensity of storm processes on Earth through the emission of particulates, said Joel Thornton, an atmospheric scientist at the University of Washington in Seattle and lead author of the new study in Geophysical Research Letters, a journal of the American Geophysical Union. It's the first time we have literally a smoking gun showing over pristine ocean areas that the lightning amount is more than doubling over these shipping lanes, said Daniel Rosenfeld, an atmospheric scientist at the Hebrew University of Jerusalem, who was not connected to the study. The study shows highly unambiguously the relationship between anthropogenic emissions, in this case from diesel engines, on deep convective clouds. Okay, it's important to note, we can't say it enough, if we're going to have a legitimately informative and educated discussion as a civilization about the topic of climate change, we can't just focus on CO2. We can't just focus on methane. We have to focus on particulate pollution. We have to focus on intentional weather modification programs. We have to focus on intentional covert climate modification programs called geoengineering that have been in place for a long time. We have to focus on the impact of unintentional electromagnetic manipulation of the atmosphere, things like power line harmonic resonance that have been studied for decades. And we have to focus on things like intentional electromagnetic fiddling with the atmosphere. Okay, so anytime you read an article in the mainstream that gives you the doom and gloom climate change perspective, just remember they're not playing with a full deck, not by a long shot. I'm seeing comments now. This is great. Thank you so much for chiming in. So yeah, I'm seeing your comments. Lay them on me. I'd love to read what you got to say. Lots of other fascinating news in here. What else should we cover today? An article today coming out of globalresearch.ca. Social media is a tool of the CIA. Facebook, Google, and other social media used to spy on people. Tell us something we don't know. A Facebook engagement for hire company has generated more than 100 million fake likes. So there you go. Remember the Equifax story. If you haven't checked into Equifax, you know, they're a big credit shoot, I'm losing my page here. They're a big credit forecasting and credit analysis agency. They lost the records for hundreds of millions of Americans. They keep an eye on everybody's credit. We covered that a couple days ago, so just a heads up, keep an eye on your bank accounts, your credit statements, all that stuff. Make sure that no one is stealing your information or your money. Where are we? Okay. Yeah, and the alleged Equifax hackers, the people who are taking responsibility for the Equifax hack, are demanding $2.6 million of Bitcoin in ransom. Of course, one of the advantages of cryptocurrencies is that you can have relatively untracked financial transactions. But now we're seeing a lot of changes. The crypto's taking a big hit this week, pretty much across the board, largely due to new regulations in China. So if you're playing the crypto markets, be careful. It might be a good move to pull all your money out of the cryptos and put it into gold. I don't know. And yeah, on the crypto thing, cryptocurrency dealers and online lenders feeling the heat in China. China's second biggest Bitcoin exchange just responded to the report. Beijing is shutting all virtual currency exchanges. So check that out, wakeupnews.net. We got all that on there. In the UK, strong painkiller use has doubled in the last 15 years. Of course, we got our own opioid epidemic here in the United States. Very serious problem. So, yeah. Mark Schultes chiming in. FBI has been tracking Bitcoin for years. You're absolutely right. Daniel Reichert hearing some music to his ears there. Silver and gold. Silver and gold. But back to the painkiller, the opioid epidemic. If you have friends or you yourself are suffering from an opioid addiction, do everything you can to get off that shit, right? We live in the middle of a depopulation agenda. Great way to kill people is to make them sick and then charge them through the nose to get well again. If you're addicted to painkillers because you really are suffering from some serious pain, let's get to the root of that problem. Try to figure out what's causing that pain and eliminate it through natural means versus popping pills, right? We can do better. I believe in you. In the U.S., millions have consumed potentially unsafe water for the last 10 years, okay? You know, the Survive Depopulation video on wakeupnews.net, check that out. We got to stay healthy, okay? The system wants to persist. The system wants to beat down the human race, right? They don't need so many workers anymore. The climate change agenda is designed to trick us into believing that we're worthless eaters, as Henry Kissinger would put it. And we're not. We're beautiful human beings. You are. Don't forget that. You know, don't get down on yourself because of what the mainstream media tells you you're supposed to believe about yourself. The findings of this millions consume potentially unsafe water. The findings highlight how 6 decades of industrial dumping, farming pollution, and water plant and distribution pipe deterioration have taken a toll on local water systems in the USA. Of course, we could have spent a bunch of money to fix that stuff, but it was more important to go blow up countries halfway around the world. Kudos to you, Uncle Sam. And thanks for all the opioids. And that's where I'm at here. A lot more links there. WakeUpNews.net. Check out the Wake Up Wyoming page. We're getting into the Jackson Hole Daily now. Thank you so much for tuning in. I know you're just here for the horoscopes. Wow, look at all these comments here. This is great. This is great. Thank you all. Lovely to see the comments. But Jackson Hole Daily, again, this paper services the wealthiest county per capita in North America. It's not the best newspaper in the world, but it's certainly not the worst. And this is what some of the wealthiest people in the world read. As far as newspapers go, it's pretty good, but it's 48 pages, about 70% advertising, 20% fluff, and 10% news. So it's kind of a waste of trees, you guys. Kind of a huge, colossal waste of paper to put this out every day. Big news in the town of Jackson. They're going to demolish Moo's Ice Cream Parlor to build a new Wells Fargo bank building right on the town square. Way to go, Jackson. Just what we need, another big Wells Fargo at another huge intersection in town. Jackson Hole pauses to commemorate 9/11. Okay, 100 people in Jackson Hole paused to commemorate 9/11 out of the 40,000 people that live in the county. More than 100 people gathered at the town square on Monday morning for the annual 9/11 memorial flag and bell ceremony. When everyone else backs down, heroes step up, Battalion Chief Matt Redwine said. On September 11, 2001, many heroes stepped up. The service of remembrance began by raising the American flag to half-staff. Jackson Police Sergeant Michelle Weber asked the crowd to remember the fallen and honor their legacy. Their lives left us gifts we should not forget, Weber said. We should not remember their sacrifice in a pitiful way. We should remember them as people who were no different, nor braver, and no better than us. Tragedy and evil show us their strengths. Okay, Jackson Police Sergeant Michelle Weber making some pretty good comments, though. But I would have to say that if you and everybody else commemorating 9/11 doesn't want to honor the victims in a pitiful way, you might want to take a good hard look at the official story of 9/11 and ask yourselves what really happened, who really did it, and what it was used to justify, right? Did you have a loved one go overseas to fight in the Iraq War, the Afghanistan War? Did you go there? Did you have a loved one die on 9/11? If these things happen to you, you really want to take a look into it because, believe it or not, 9/11 was, is, and always will be an inside job, right? The most blatant attack by the military-industrial complex on the American people in American history, okay? Arguably, there are bigger attacks like these hurricanes that could be prevented, but 9/11 so blatantly, obviously, a staged event. 3,000 Americans sacrificed to the war machine to justify the endless war on terror, which is in fact a war of terror, because terrorism is defined as the rule through fear, intimidation, and outright violence. And that's exactly what waging foreign wars for 17 goddamn years is all about. So, kudos to all the first responders. Much love and respect to everybody who lost a loved one in 9/11. You know, sorry for all you people that died there. We're trying to do justice. We're trying to not remember you in a pitiful way by getting the truth out. Opinion section. You know, I'm full of opinions. The mainstream media is too. It's kind of cool. Today in the opinion section, the mainstream media actually openly admitting how biased it is. You don't see that every day, but today we're seeing that in the opinion section in the Jackson Hole Daily. Charles M. Blow, though, that's the lower article. The upper article, Charles M. Blow, finding chicken soup for the soul survival in Trump's hell. Like many Americans, I try my best to do the small affirming things in my family and in my community that express my love and reaffirm my values. I give more space for the activities that celebrate and create the creative imagination and that express the long, tumultuous span of the human condition. I try to nourish my soul so that it will survive, because the fight is not finished. We are in hell. We have to remember that one day we will get out, okay? So there you see, you know, this guy, Charles M. Blow, New York Times. Are you sure you're in hell, buddy? You're a syndicated columnist for the New York Times, right? You get to, you know, give me a syndicated column. I won't tell you I'm in hell, I'll tell you that much. But it's funny, basically, this guy, Charles M. Blow, blaming everything on Trump. If only we'd elected somebody else, everything would be hunky-dory magical, right? That's what Charles M. Blow's saying. Not quite. Trump is a symptom of the problem. He's not the problem itself. And on to this article about addressing the dangers of fake news and fake innocence by Bernard Goldberg. In a free country, people need to have confidence in the press. They need to know that reporters are honest brokers, that they are holding powerful people accountable and not settling scores. So it would help if Trump stopped delegitimizing the mainstream media, you know, fake news. And it would also help if reporters acknowledge that too many journalists have abandoned the role of objective observers and taken on the role of anti-Trump activists. Shouting fake news is no way to deal with a press Trump doesn't like. And proclaiming fake innocence is no way to deal with a president that reporters don't like. Okay, that's a pretty good article there. Bernard Goldberg, the creator of Syndicate. But the important thing to note there, this article, he's openly admitting how biased the mainstream media is. I studied communication, journalism, philosophy in college. And I have to say that a lot of the news that we read in the paper today, if I submitted that, you know, if I was in a media writing class and I submitted that to my professor, it'd probably be C+, somewhere between a C and a D, because it's, you know, the mainstream news is so blatantly biased these days. It doesn't read like journalism used to read. You know, it's like they don't answer the who, what, where, when, why in an objective manner in the first paragraph. And the terminology they use spins the story exactly the way they want it to be. So, yeah. There we go. The mainstream. That's part of the reason we're doing this, is to expose the lies of the mainstream. U.S. Rep Liz Cheney, a Republican from Wyoming, old Dickface's daughter, is co-sponsoring a bill that would hand more control of oil and gas development on federal land to the states. Cheney said the bill represents a better approach to regulations on the ground. The majority of oil and gas development in Wyoming takes place on federal land or involves federal minerals. Environmental groups oppose the bill, saying it would give energy companies too much control over public land use. Sounds about right to me. It's important to note, Wyoming, a huge mineral extraction state. The largest uranium producer in the United States. They just had a big uranium spill not that long ago. And the largest coal producer. Of course, Wyoming, so blessed with mineral wealth, is also the home to the largest continental accessible, well, not anymore, but the largest continental geothermal energy resource on the planet. Of course, I'm talking about Jellystone National Park, home of Yogi Bear, overrun by millions of tourists every summer, right? The federal government stole Yellowstone from the native sheep-eater Indians back in 1872 because they wanted to control the world's largest geothermal energy resource. It was only several decades later, about 50 years later, that the National Park Service was found, that the National Park Service was founded, and the U.S. Army abandoned their essentially base up there in Yellowstone, and they turned it into a huge amusement park. Okay? Fascinating. Grizzly bear attacks. Montana's been on fire. The grizzly bear is apparently not so happy about that. 2 grizzly bear attacks in Montana, southwest Montana, both driven off by bear spray. A woman and a male hunter. So if you're out there in the woods in grizzly country, carry your bear spray. It's funny, I've got a friend, I was talking to her yesterday. She always runs with a can of bear spray in her hand when she's anywhere out on the trails, and people make fun of her for it. But, carry your bear spray. I must admit I don't carry my bear spray all the time, so if I get killed by a grizzly bear, I guess I should have been more consistent with my core message. Just in case you were wondering what marks 9/11, it's resolve, tears, and hope. That's what they say right there. I don't think it's resolve, tears, and hope. I think it's more of a national disgrace. Trump, a native New Yorker observing the anniversary for the first time as the country's leader, assured victims' families that our entire nation grieves with you and issued stern words to extremists. America cannot be intimidated, and those who try will join a long list of vanquished enemies who dared test our mettle, the Republican president said as he spoke at the Pentagon after observing a moment of silence at the White House. Okay, so there's your Trump. Any of you Trump supporters that thought he was going to be the one to swoop in and drain the swamp, the one to get us some 9/11 truth, the one to get us, to get us some disclosure on the geoengineering issue. Sorry, Trump's towing the line. Kind of expected. I don't think they would have let him become the president if he wasn't going to toe the line. I hate to say it to people that got their hopes up about Trump, but that's how the whole Messiah complex thing works. Speaking of Trump, he seems to be dismantling everything Obama did. California files suit challenging Trump's end to DACA. California sued the Trump administration Monday over its decision to end a program that shields young immigrants from deportation, saying the state would be especially hard hit because it has more of the immigrants brought to the U.S. illegally by parents or by parents who overstayed visas than any other state. It's a heck of a sentence there, guys. AP out of Sacramento, big run-on sentence. California Attorney General Xavier Becerra said California's case is stronger than the first lawsuit filed last week because more than 200,000 of the 800,000 participants in the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals program, the DACA program, live in California. Unlike the lawsuit filed in New York last week by the other states, the new challenge from California does not make the argument that Trump's decision was motivated by an anti-Mexican bias. Instead, it homes in, I think they made it say hones, guys, AP Sacramento, it's Hones, not homes in, it's hones in. It hones in on statements by Trump administration officials that the young immigrants in the program rob U.S. jobs from Americans and that the program led to a surge of Central American immigrants. Okay, I love Mexicans. The economy here in Jackson Hole would fall apart overnight if all the Mexicans went on strike. Meanwhile, the wealthiest people in the world barely know how to mow their own damn lawns. UN approves weakened North Korea sanctions. The UN Security Council said Monday that they unanimously approved new sanctions on North Korea in a watered-down resolution that eliminated a ban on all oil imports and an international asset freeze on the government and leader Kim Jong-un that the Trump administration wanted. The resolution does ban North Korea from importing all natural gas liquids and condensates, but it caps Pyongyang's imports of crude oil at the level of the last 12 months. And it limits the import of refined petroleum products at 2 million barrels a year. It also bans all textile exports and prohibits countries from authorizing new work permits for North Korean workers, two key sources of hard currency for the Northeast Asia nation. Okay, we're not going to get bombed by North Korea anytime soon. It's just, economic warfare, the oldest trick in the book. And in the mainstream media, fear-mongering, the notion that a big threat to American citizens or the American country is North Korea is absolutely absurd. Okay? So that's how the media works, fear-mongering. This is a kind of a what the fuck over moment here. A government backlog of 700,000 security clearance reviews has led agencies like the Defense Department to inadvertently issue interim high security clearance passes to criminals, even rapists and killers, fueling calls for better and faster vetting of people with access to the nation's secrets. The pileup, which is government-wide, is causing work delays for both federal and private intelligence efforts. It takes about 4 months to acquire a clearance to gain access to secret information on a need-to-know basis, and 9 to 10 months for top-secret clearance. Efforts to reduce the backlog coincide with pressure to tighten the reins on classified material. If we don't do interim clearances, nothing gets done, Dan Payne, director of the U.S. Defense Security Service, said recently at an intelligence conference. Yet Payne described handing out interim clearances as risky business. I've got murderers who have access to classified information, he said. I have rapists. I have pedophiles. I have people involved in child porn. I have all these at the interim clearance level, and I'm pulling their clearances on a weekly basis. Okay, I'm going to read that last paragraph again. I've got murderers who have access to classified information, he said. I have rapists. I have pedophiles. I have people involved in child porn. I have all these at the interim clearance level, and I'm pulling their clearances on a weekly basis. It's insane, right? Although I have to say, you got folks like the Clintons, they're murderers. Bill Clinton, a pedophile. So they have top secret clearances, and they're not getting them pulled anytime soon. But the fact that, how is this even possible? I can understand there being a government backlog because they don't get paid to really work. They just get paid to kind of sit there at a desk and turn coffee into piss. They don't have to turn a profit as a business would. But it doesn't make any sense. If we live in this global surveillance state where everybody is checked out, how could they possibly not be able to clear people and not know that they're pedophiles, child pornographers, murderers, and rapists getting top secret clearance? If the government wants to give me top secret clearance, I can safely say I've never done any of those things. And I would be happy Department of Defense, happy CIA, happy FBI, to help you spread that information, because what's more important to an open republic, what's more important to the democratic process than an informed citizenry? Moving along, San Diego streets will be power washed due to the hepatitis A epidemic sweeping the homeless community there. If you haven't seen any of the footage of the homeless encampments in Southern California, it's pretty shocking. You should check out some of that. Bunch of fluffity duff. Portugal confronts the worst drought in over 20 years. Okay, and then there's another headline in my phone today about how they think Spain is going to, 30% of Spain is going to be Sahara Desert within the next couple decades. But worst drought in 20 years in Portugal. While parts of the United States and the Caribbean are drowning in water amid ferocious hurricanes, a drought is tightening its grip on wide areas of Portugal. More than 80% of the country is officially classified as enduring severe or extreme drought. Conditions among the country's worst in more than 20 years. Water has sporadically been scarce in this part of southern Europe for centuries, but Portuguese Environment Secretary Carlos Martins told the Associated Press that it has gotten worse with what? With climate change. Of course, they're going to blame climate change for this, right? Naturally, it's climate change. Yes, the climate's changing, but a lot of it is intentional. It's more than just CO2. It's more than just methane. Making sure there's enough water for drinking faucets is the top priority, he said. That could end up bringing a ban on the irrigation of farmland, which uses up 80% of the region's available water. Okay, it's important to note, we've been spun this water wars agenda for over a decade now, where they say, the greatest threat, in the 21st century, we're going to be fighting, the 20th century, we fought wars for oil. In the 21st century, we're going to be fighting for blue gold water, the water wars of the 21st century. I think it makes sense given the fact that people have the ability to play God with the weather. Governments, corporations, the military-industrial complex. Here's an idea. Why didn't they just take Hurricane Harvey and weaken it, turn it around, steer it across the Atlantic, and then have it nice, gentle, sustained rainstorm over Portugal? Solving two problems at once. You can thank me later. But moving along. Weather for the local area, isolated thunderstorms, showers likely, and scattered thunderstorms. Here you see some of the wonderful art for sale in Jackson Hole, and you can get one of those. It costs you maybe 10 grand or something. It's beautiful. Teddy Roosevelt, historical piece of shit. They always market Teddy like he was this frontier wild man, but he was a New York City rich boy. And you can look that up for yourself if you don't believe me. Business news. We're on to the business. Let's get into the business. Lindsay Sartain chiming in. Distractions. You're right, Lindsay. Lots of distractions out there in the mainstream today, but I don't know. I read the paper anyway. Stocks hit highs as Irma fears fade. Of course, this makes no sense whatsoever, but in the wake of two massive natural disasters, $200 billion of damages, of course the stock markets are going to be at all-time record highs because disasters are good for the economy, just like somebody getting cancer is good for the economy, just like a war is good for the economy. This solved any doubts about what was going to happen with the debt ceiling, and it also encouraged the Federal Reserve to keep printing money and not raise interest rates. New York, AP. U.S. stocks rallied to record highs Monday as Hurricane Irma weakened without causing as much damage as many had feared. And a North Korean holiday passed without new missile launches. Financial and technology investors led the way. Investors were relieved as Irma, which is still deluging Florida and Georgia, didn't appear to be as bad as it did in projections last week. Insurance companies jumped, especially smaller ones that do a lot of business in Florida. How much? Well, the S&P 500 up 1.1%, the Dow Jones Industrial Average up 1.2%, and the NASDAQ Composite up a whopping 1.1% as well. That is a huge jump in the stock market for one day, folks. And it happened when? On the same day this hurricane was battering Florida, Georgia, South Carolina. Strange. That wiped out a month of losses linked to international tensions as well as worries about the lingering effects of hurricanes, which are expected to slow the economy over the next few months. In another sign, investors were willing to take more risk. Gold lost 1.1% and silver lost 1.2%. Okay, the market's rigged, my friends. You know, the central bank, the Federal Reserve Bank, has a license to print money. So the stock market, not an adequate reflection of reality. But don't worry, the rich are getting richer while the average working American's earnings are staying stagnant and being inflated away. Here's some fun news. 7 bikini baristas and the owner of a chain of coffee stands called Hillbilly Hotties sued the city of Everett, Washington on Monday, saying 2 recently passed ordinances banning bare skin violate their right to free expression. The suit, filed in U.S. District Court in Seattle, says the ordinance passed by the Everett City Council deny bikini stand employees the ability to communicate through swimwear, are vague and confusing, and unlawfully target women. Just like Starbucks with green aprons, UPS with brown trucks and outfits, and Hooters with short orange shorts, the barista's attire evokes a message at work, the lawsuit says, adding that such messages include freedom, empowerment, openness, acceptance, approachability, vulnerability, and individuality. They got a heck of a lawyer there at Hillbilly Hotties. The city did not immediately return an email seeking comment Monday. So, you know, I think that the baristas should be allowed to wear bikinis if they want to, right? Back to business real quick. Here we see a very good example of how the Federal Reserve System works. This is a political cartoon from 1913 by a brilliant person named Crozier, right when the Fed was being established. And what we see here, the Federal Reserve System is this gigantic monster, private syndicate. It says it right there on its arms, right? What's it got? It's got a tentacle in the U.S. Treasury, one in the Capitol, one in the White House. And then on the bottom there, they're going into the banks, the farms, and the factories. Notice, you know, all the money that the Federal Reserve private syndicate financial system acquires gets dumped into this hopper that goes to the New York City Stock Exchange. Okay? So that's how it works. Bessie Davis asking, sheep-eating Indians? Yeah, the sheep-eater Indians, the Tukadika tribe, a branch of the Shoshone, were the first inhabitants of Yellowstone. Very, very fascinating tribe. I got a few books on them here, but I don't see them at the moment. The new iPhone is going to cost you a whopping $1,000. So if you love iPhones, get ready to fork out a G for your latest tracking device, irradiation device. There's the scopes. We're going to get into them a little later. Miss America chiming off. The U.S. needs a seat at the Paris Pact table. More climate change propaganda coming from who? Miss America, coming from North Dakota, a state that's known for its disturbing energy development practices like we saw at Standing Rock last winter. Atlantic City, New Jersey, AP, an Ivy League graduate headed to law school with eyes on becoming her state's first female governor, Miss North Dakota Kara Moond, knew the importance of answering a question head-on. So when judges at the Miss America competition asked her whether President Trump was wrong to withdraw the United States from the Paris Climate Agreement that seeks to rein in greenhouse gas emissions, she didn't hesitate. It's a bad decision, she said during Sunday night's nationally televised finale. There is evidence that climate change is existing, and we need to be at that table. That answer helped her win the crown as Miss America 2018 at Atlantic City's Boardwalk Hall. So, yeah, Miss America drinking the Kool-Aid on climate change. I used to drink it too. Can't really hold it against her. And, yeah. Then, fluffity duff, we're into some sports. The North Dakota first. I don't know why there's all this fucking news about North Dakota in the paper today, but don't worry, guys. The First Lady of North Dakota is hardcore tackling alcohol addiction as part of her platform as the unelected wife of the governor of North Dakota. Big deal. Sports. A lot of fluff. NFL wants suspension back on. Cardinals lose. Star running back Johnson to dislocated wrist. Shit. That's huge news. And freshman walk-on snapper starts for the Wyoming Cowpokes. In the win, congratulations, Cowpokes, on the big win last week. Of course, nobody gives a shit, and it doesn't matter. Sports, bread and circuses, the greatest distraction of all, perhaps. You got your pop culture, you got your Hollywood, you got your people famous just for being famous, and you got your athletes. The most disturbing thing about sports is it teaches young children that they should dream of becoming professional athletes someday, when in reality, that dream is out of reach for all except an extremely small percentage of people. Okay? So there's your news today, folks. We're going to get into the scopes real quick. But first, we're going to shred this up. David Cocorico Sedano says, I love sports. I'm sorry. David, that's cool, man. You're entitled to your own opinion. You don't have to apologize for that. But I have to say, they're a big distraction. And you're not going to benefit yourself or your loved ones by watching sports. Having a big Super Bowl party, eating a bunch of, cheapo nacho cheese or whatever, and carrot sticks and all that, it's just not going to do it. Drinking a bunch of Bud Light, not going to get you very far in the world. Sports rots your brain just like TV. But you can do whatever you want with your life. I know I'm going to do what I want with my life, and that's why I'm reading the horoscopes for you all. Thank you so much for tuning in. We're finally onto the scopes. Again, these are coming from Jacqueline Begar. JacquelineBegar.com, 2017 by King Features Syndicate. My phone's blowing up, so I'm going to see what's going on here. Nothing. It's funny how these things will alert you to absolutely nothing going on in your world like it's a huge deal. But, into the scopes. 4-star day for Aries. A veil of confusion could cause you to make a less than great choice. Wait until you see a situation more clearly, perhaps with the help of an astute friend who knows how to proceed, or someone who has some relevant experience. Tonight, chat away with a friend and catch up on news. Taurus, that's me, the bull, 5-star day. You hear that? 5-star day. Huge deal. You might be taken aback to hear what has happened with a friend who thought he or she was on the winning path, only to be proven wrong. I hope I know who that is. Give this person some time, and you'll both see the situation more clearly. Take news with a grain of salt. Tonight, keep to your budget. Don't worry about that. I'm frugal these days, living off a couple dollars a day. Gemini, 5-star day. Here we go. You naturally seem to make the right decision for you and, if need be, for your inner circle. You might not be sure about an authority figure's response, but you will get some clarity soon. Someone near you is likely to play devil's advocate. Tonight, a smile goes a long way. Cancer, 3-star day. Choose to say little. Not everyone needs to know your opinion. Visit with a friend over a cup of coffee or a glass of wine. You will enjoy catching up on his or her news and vice versa. You tend to feel great around this person. Tonight, know when to call it a night. Leos of the world, you're having a 4-star day. I know a couple of Leos. A discussion within a group demonstrates loyalty, but might not lead to a good idea. You will want to toy with various concepts or play devil's advocate more often in brainstorming sessions. A serious conversation could evoke some concern. Tonight, a must appearance. Virgo, 3-star day. Others look to you for guidance and suggestions. You could be confused by a problem that someone else presents. Do your best to view the solutions presented by others as viable. You might wonder how there can be a resolution with so much pride involved. Tonight, out late. Libra. Wait, hold on. Yep, 4-star day for Libra. Do some thinking in order to get past a problem. You are likely to see a solution that will give you a better understanding of where others are coming from. Someone close to you could be unusually negative. You might be confused by what is happening. Tonight, follow the music. Scorpio, Karen J. It's 4-star day. You could do well when related. You always do well when relating to others on a one-to-one level. Today is no exception. Understand that your expectations won't be the same as someone else's. Communication flourishes, but you might not be hearing the same message. Tonight, speak openly with a pal. Sagittarius, you're having a 5-star day. A lot of 5-star days out there today. You could be in a situation where you feel as if someone is not as clear as you would like. Confusion surrounds the domestic front. How you deal with this confusion will determine which direction you are likely to head in. Tonight, join close friends at a favorite place, you Saggies. Capricorn, 3-star day. Look out. You have a lot to do, but you might need to work late. Spend more time alone without others supervising you or friends touching base. You will clear out the lion's share of the work. Use your instincts for a loved one. Confusion surrounds communication. Tonight, hang out. Aquarius, 5-star day. Another 5-star. You can't help but tap into your playful side right now, especially while others are so serious and demanding. Be careful with your financial dealings. You could cause yourself a lot of trouble if you become too playful with your money. Tonight, let out your inner child. And Pisces, 4-star day for you fish people. You might be more of an enigma to others than you are aware. You might seem vague, inspirational, and distant all at the same time. You will see an agenda differently from how those around you see it. Avoid becoming overly serious and perhaps upset. Tonight, head home. And born today, singer-songwriter Barry White in 1944. I thought he was older than that, but he's just a couple years older than my dad. And that's your news for today. Again, thank you so much for being here on Wake Up Wyoming. I know it's a long show. I know it's not the most exciting thing on the internet, but I'm working on becoming a better broadcaster. And all of you, the 33 of you that are still here, must enjoy the show somewhat. So keep the comments coming, keep the likes coming, keep the shares coming. A lot of big changes here at Wake Up News for the better, you know. I moved the office out to the garage. It's amazing what you can build with scrap lumber left over from construction jobs. You can see all this nice trim in here. Like back here, I didn't pay a dime for that. Thank you, CEO of Citibank, for changing your mind and just saying, take it away. Take away this $3,000, $4,000 worth of trim. It's not the right color, right? So thanks to Citibank for all the trim. Really appreciate that. The new office. Again, we're looking for help at Wake Up News as we approach 500,000 likes. We need a graphic designer. We need a web developer. I'm looking for an assistant/intern. I got a room for rent. Whether or not you want to work for Wake Up News or not, if you live in the Jackson Hole area, we got a screaming housing crisis right now, and I will give you a screaming deal on a house. But I'd rather get somebody who's like-minded, that's willing to work with me to more effectively bring the news to all of you. So if you know somebody, send them my way. If it's you, let me know. Private message Max Mogren or message Wake Up News. But the best way to get me, add me as a friend on Facebook and private message me. If we don't have any mutual friends, maybe go on my wall and drop a couple comments. Be like, hey, I sent you a message, because Facebook filters the messages just like they filter the comments. Just like I can't see how many people have actually liked this. It says I got 54, but I think we got a couple more. I got rhubarb. Got rhubarb coming out my ears. If you live in Idaho, you want some rhubarb, hit me up. And that's it for today. Wake Up Wyoming for September 12th, 2017. Again, stay aware. Stay active. Stay optimistic. We got this. I love you all. I'll be going through the comments right after this, and I certainly appreciate all the efforts that all of you make to make your voices heard. One more thing. I quit my job. I'm doing this full time right now. I know it may seem like I'm pretty lighthearted and I just tee off here, but I'll get up at about 6 in the morning and study the news for about 6 hours before I go live, because I'm trying to actually do a service here. I'm trying to actually make it fun and make it interesting and all that. So I'm out of a job right now. If you want to support my work, I started a Patreon page. You can find links to that on any of my articles on wakeupdudes.net. Be very happy for your support there, but I'm not expecting anything, right? I made my living before now as a bartender, and as a bartender, you're not really allowed to ask for tips. right? It's like the biggest taboo. You can't get mad if somebody doesn't tip you. I'm not going to be mad at any of you if you don't tip me for the work I do here. But I have to say it's pretty funny because I made more in one night as a bartender. I made more money than I could probably make in a year making videos like this. And what do I do for people as a bartender? I'm like, hey, man, how you doing tonight? What you drinking? It's like, I want 3 Budweisers. I'm like, okay, cool. Go to the cooler, pull out 3 Buds, pop, 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 set them on the bar. Be like, there you go, brother. That's $12. And he'll hand me 15. He says, keep it. So literally 10 seconds of effort trying to help somebody out, trying to do a service for somebody, makes me $3. Whereas I can spend 6 hours making a video like this and nobody sees the need to drop me a dime. And that's fine. Let me keep doing what I'm doing. I'm not doing it for the money. It's out of the love. But it sure would be nice to have the financial stability to know, wow, I can do this. I can keep devoting more and more effort to this, more time to this, and it's only going to get better because I'm not worried about money. Wouldn't it be nice to be free, you know? In an ideal world, if I could figure out a way to make a couple $1,000 a month off of doing this, I would hit the road. I'd go on a permanent Wake Up News road trip, going to where the news takes place to report back to you. It would be a lot more interesting show than me just sitting here. So think about it. That's my little shtick. But again, I don't expect you to pay me anything. I'm just throwing it out there. It's your boy Mog, Wake Up Wyoming here at Wake Up News. Lots of love for all of you. Thanks again for all your likes, shares, subscribes. Check out my Patreon if you want. I'm actually going to be posting some things there that you won't get here. Have a little story time. Believe it or not, I've accumulated some crazy stories in my life, and those are going to be for subscribers only on Patreon. So if you subscribe, you'll get it. If you don't, you won't. That's all I got to say. It's your boy Mog signing off. Tune in next time, real soon, here on Wake Up News. One love. Peace.